Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sean Michael Small.
And I'm Keaton Shaw. Welcome to Talking Point here on WESN Content Capital.
Well, folks, as you know, it's a wonderful, beautiful morning here today, but we have an interesting development to talk about this morning. So let's get straight into it. Let's start the daily review. Well, folks, those of you who might have been watching the show from the beginning might know that our first interview was about an interesting and unfortunate human rights topic, in my opinion, but one that is in a lot of gray area with regards to our nation's laws. And I'm talking about the TNT nationals in Syria and their status or potential lack thereof, and the fact that for the last 3 years plus, throughout the pandemic and even before, they have been unable to, well, not just be allowed to return to TNT, but according to a recent article, they have yet to even been told just exactly what is the nature of the risk that the government is so concerned about that is preventing them to return to TNT. And because of that, they are threatening a lawsuit to the Minister of National Security, because it seems as though at the end of the day, since the living conditions at the refugee camps that they are stuck in are lacking to, at best, and deplorable to say the least, it's an untenable situation where minors are growing up more or less in these conditions without any proper substantive educational facilities, medical facilities, the quality of life, and these people are more or less just stuck there. We're talking about over 70 persons. Well, at this point, some of the minors in the case, it had started so long ago, have already reached the preteen or teenage age. And Keaton, I don't know about you, but this is just something that I don't necessarily understand. I can't agree with it. I know there's some people who will say, well, they went there, they deserve what they got, but we're not talking about the fighters that went to Syria to engage in combat. We're talking about the dependents that went with them.
Okay, I hear you, but let us, separate the dependents. Spouses, wives went willingly. It is unfortunate that there are children out there who are stuck not by their choice, but by the acts of their parents. And to be honest with you, there are laws, and human rights laws exist, and the government of Trinidad and Tobago obviously should be enforcing the law, but at the same time, in doing so, there is a risk. You see, in my opinion, whilst I agree it's rather unfortunate, because again, I'm thinking about the children, in the instances of wives and husbands and whoever went to Syria to join the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS or ISIL, honestly, so you lay your bed, now you should lie in it. And as I said, to me, the biggest thing is the children. But if you went willingly to Syria, remember, you're asking the government to bring you back home now. The government never sent you to Syria. You went on your own will. You went on your own accord.
They're not even necessarily asking for the resources to come back. From what I understand, U.S. Central Command might be willing. At least a couple of years ago, one of the reports, Ms. Nafiza Mohammed, who spoke about the issue, I believe, also indicated that they could have gotten help, they could have gotten foreign aid to actually do the physical part of bringing them back. What was required was the legal part, the literal authorization for them to come in, because you don't want them to travel all the way and then just, get stuck at the border.
That is understood. But you want to come back to Trinidad and Tobago now that the ISIS campaign has more or less failed. And,
here's the other thing, though. I know we live in a modern society, freedom of choice and all that, but TNT still has its conservative religious roots. To what extent did all of those women have a free and clear choice when their husbands are saying, well, we're going?
Even if that is a fair point, and I respect it, I still think that if you follow a lot of the stories, there was a lot of choice involved. For example, a foreign station, I cannot recall the news network now, actually interviewed Umar Abdullah, Umar Abdullah took him to, took the reporter actually to a mosque down in South Trinidad. The imam of the mosque, his daughter left. He says he never knew anything about it. It was actually revealed that the imam himself and even Umar Abdullah, which we know of now, were actually recruiting individuals to send to Syria, to send to Iraq. Honestly, you have a fair point in terms of conservative roots and religion. And you're right, there are some that may have been forced. At the end of the day, I still feel sorry for the children as it relates to husbands and wives. I'm so sorry. I even if it's the argument is, listen, you know, they're nationals of Trinidad and Tobago, you chose to fly out there. I'm not going to feel sorry for you now.
I mean, you're right in that really and truly the issue is with the children who, even the oldest, I believe, would have still been minors when the whole situation happened and when they were denied the right to return. The thing is, other nations are repatriating their citizens. I would say the compromise would be, well, yes, you know, we'll bring you back, but all of you adults who were adults when you all went have to realize that at the end of the day, you potentially broke laws and you're going to be charged for those breaches.
If you wanted to be a part of ISIS or the Islamic State, and I respect people's religious beliefs. I have no problem with that. But if you wanted to be part of the Islamic State or the Islamic Republic that ISIS was really going after, the promised land before the second coming, to me, you've just rescinded your status as a Trinbagonian. And people might say that's a controversial statement to make, but you're moving from one state to another. You weren't happy here. You had no beliefs. You didn't think you had freedom to choose, freedom to believe down here in TNT. Then that is the risk that the government is saying, you know, listen, at the end of the day, you left Trinidad and Tobago, you abandoned Trinidad and Tobago to go and fight in this war. All right, now the ruins of war, it's the result of your actions. Therefore, why are we going to risk other people? And the thing is, the argument has been made. There is no risk. They have made promises that they're no longer going to get involved in any form of radicalization in Trinidad and Tobago. We've had that interview here on Talking Points.
The irony is, I think, at least some of them, if not most of them, would probably be good candidates for some scared straight situation. Because it is my understanding, and I could be wrong, that when they went there, yes, it's an Islamic state, but it wasn't all peaches and cream. It wasn't milk and honey. It was a situation where, yeah, you'll be free to be Muslim. I'm not so sure you were free in a lot of other ways. And just the life that they were potentially going to have over there, even when the war was over, probably was not what they were thinking it was going to be. And I believe the Imam who was, for all intents and purposes, behind the recruitment, he has gone on record, I believe, to say that he regretted his role in it. I do wonder if there's some value in people who are saying, look, we made a horrible mistake, and this is the result of it. Don't make the same mistake, because you really don't know what you're getting yourself into.
People will repent and they will apologize for their actions. And I will always say, if you've made a mistake and there's an opportunity to learn from that mistake, fair enough. Okay, great. The thing is that even before you made that mistake, you knew what was taking place.
I mean,
right? You understood what was happening.
This is where I have to partially agree with you. Religious fanaticism and radicalization is not so clear-cut, and we've seen situations where women could be just as dangerous as the men. So that's the thing. It's not as though these ladies did that. They joined a situation where the potential for that is very real. So we have to figure that out. But
very complicated indeed.
Yes,
there's a threat of a lawsuit, and let's see just what happens, what comes out of it.
Well, this is so different to the situation present. So part of me thinks the lawsuit has a chance to go in because the judges are willing to rule against the state. But this is a whole different ballgame. So I have no idea how this is going to go. But we have to move on. We do have two more stories to get through. One of them drips with irony, at least in my opinion, and that is the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley. It seems as though he was somewhat complaining about the lack of performance from the regional corporations, the local government. And it's interesting because on one hand, he's saying, well, look, You know, I almost lost my house because the local corporation can't fix a damaged drain because they don't have sand and cement, right? And then he says that this situation will be solved with the local government reform because they'll have property tax, so they'll have funds to solve it. If the issue is just about funding, doesn't Cabinet control the allocation to local governments?
I think this...
So then he's complaining about his government not giving local government enough funding, right? If it's not about funding and it's the systems of local government, that's different.
You see, I think this was such an ironic story. It's like the pot calling the kettle black. Because as far as I'm concerned, the argument that Dr. Keith Rowley might make as Prime Minister is simple. We're making the funding available, they're not utilizing the funding that we're making available.
That is not what we hear from the local corporations.
Listen, that's not what we heard from the local corporations. That's what the Prime Minister may argue, may put forward in his arguments. Right? Of course, Junior Regrello, his worship Mayor of San Fernando, he has suggested that he believes local government reform will work in terms of financing. And okay, but hold on.
Did he explain how, if they're getting enough funding and it's not working, how property tax and their control of their own funding is going to improve the situation? That's my issue. He didn't connect the dots, so he left it up in the air.
All right, it's essentially like this. Sean, if you can give me money, I promise you I'll repair that pothole outside your house.
Right.
That's just basically how it's going to be. It's more or less, you know, the simplest form of putting it that way. It's so interesting because the Prime Minister is now complaining about local government operations, even about his own local government council. And Prime Minister, listen, I am so sorry that there was a situation with respect to your house where you had to spend money because local government corporations couldn't actually fix a landslide or the results of a landslide. You see, Prime Minister, I think you've just experienced something that many, many Trinbagonians face, where they have to fork out their own money to repair damage to their property because of a lack of local government action. So you're experiencing this for the first time, and it's also the first time that you're lamenting it. You see, the thing is, understand this. Local government elections are coming up. They were due last December. They're coming up this December. And they're going to stretch it out as much as they can to the very last day that it is due. And there is going to be a strong campaign for local government reform now, even though it's been on the table, it's been on the books. I think parts of it have been passed, and there's still parts to go. But there is going to be a full push for this. There's going to be a lot of work being done. The Prime Minister himself said last year, you know, this year there's going to be a full road paving exercise across Trinidad and Tobago. You know what, honestly, Prime Minister, I am so sorry, but this from you is absolute nonsense, because you have a Minister of Local Government, you have a Minister of Finance, you are the head of the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And essentially, as I said, it's the pot calling the kettle black because of your short-sightedness, I suppose.
Here's the problem. The problem is there's still going to be allocations from what I understand. The Minister of Finance still has to control certain aspects of local government finance, and there still will be some allocations, right? So you still could have the scenario of, you want XYZ fixed, I need more money. You could still have that scenario. So I don't disagree with local government reform. But I do wonder if, to some extent, and maybe how the responsibilities will be framed, it might improve somewhat. But I do think part of the problem is resources, of which, yes, if that's the thing, and this is just going to give them access to more resources that central government doesn't have, fine, because we're adding property tax. But I do wonder if some of the problems are even more in the bedrock, and it goes back to what our guest yesterday was saying. You have to change things from the ground up. So, but with that said, Mr. Prime Minister, your complaints, you did not connect the dots. You kind of left it up in the air. When you miss your communication like this, don't expect people to follow you. They're going to have an issue with it because you're sounding. You're not doing it correct. That's all I'm going to say. You're not doing it correct because you're going all over the place with this. This is not helping your cause.
All right, we don't have time for the last story. We have to go to break now. But as we conclude with this particular subject, this topic in particular. I would also, at the same time, though I have criticized the Prime Minister for his statements, I'd also congratulate him. I mean, it is the first time I have seen a Prime Minister criticize his, basically more or less, if I analyze this, his own governance.
This is the thing. If he used a different line of thought in his messaging, the same example could have been an effective case. He could have made an effective case for his reforms, but how he framed it, he didn't actually, he just set himself up for more questions. We don't understand what you mean. You control the resources. If resources are an issue, why is resources an issue? You control it. Tell us that. Explain that to us. Then your example will have some teeth.
I'll tell you what, let's go for a break, because Sean and I don't understand a lot, maybe because we're not inside, but there's somebody who understands a lot more, who will be joining us very shortly to hopefully give us a dose of education this morning. We'll be right back here on Talking Points.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, today we have with us the good lady herself, the attorney at law, the former Minister of Finance, the lecturer, author, scholar. We have, of course, Mrs. Karen Nunes-Shishera. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning to you, Sean. Good morning, Keaton, and to your listeners and viewers. Always happy to be here on what they call it. It's called Hump Day. I don't know if that's an American thing, but anyhow. We'll just say Happy Wednesday.
Oh, Karen, come on. It's Hump Day.
Well,
okay, it's Hump Day.
Well, and so when we last spoke to you...
In the sense of the camel.
Yes. In the sense of the camel.
I will not join in on that
make
conversation.
It clear.
I am just ignoring that and moving on. We spoke last time, Karen, about a situation that we only got the preliminary reports about, and that is, of course, to do with the state more or less having to pay 9 men 2.1 million each, totaling to about $20 million. And the following day last week was when the Attorney General, Reginald Amor, he had a press conference where he explained his position up until that point. And now there are still questions from the legal fraternity, from a lot of the people. Quite a few of our callers, ever since that press conference, have questions and opinions on the matter. And you yourself have not necessarily responded since the press conference happened. So first of all, just what do you make of the whole position and where do you see things moving forward?
No, that's such a very long and loaded
well,
question.
we can start with the first part and speak about the second part after.
Yeah, okay. I think for me, remember when we last spoke on it, we were speculating, well, let's see how they're going to deflect this one. They can't bring in the police, but who are I to say that they wouldn't do that? Oh no. The Reggie Amor, which I feel so embarrassed for him, I have a feeling he wishes he wouldn't there. I have a feeling he said, my God, what am I doing here? Because if I were in his position, now you're asking me these questions, not just as an attorney, but someone who's on the inside. And having been on the inside with some of the major players, I do have a sense, perhaps more than the man in the streets, of the things that go on behind the scenes that you would not be privy to. I am not privy to them, but I am basing it on my experience. And I can assure you, I have been the victim, I will use the word the victim of that, where I have been made to be the fall guy, deliberately so. And at the end of the day, others who are in this current administration came to my rescue when, as far as I can see, I was set up. So I am not a person who is going to take, I have a very jaundiced view of how this government operates. And in terms of this whole situation, I think one of the things that struck me, which just, there are many, but one of them that struck me is that, I don't know if you recall, we had said, well, they can't go calling the police. Well, who told me to say that? In Reggie Amor's statement, Attorney General, he used the word sinister. Every time you use the word sinister, you take people down a rabbit hole, and then you want them to go down that rabbit hole because you want to deflect from the real issues. So talking about what was at play. And as Martin Daly said in his interview, which we had discussed this before, so I just thought the same way he did. What's the big thing about if you didn't, if you said that on June 22nd you were served and you have the name of the person who served it and you have the service process server from the civil registry saying that they served you what time, what date, etc. You have that on record. And you now say the next day when listening, what is it for you to reconstruct the file? Yeah. What is it for you to ask the registry to send you a copy so that you can reconstruct the file like you apparently were eventually able to do when you slammed your big thick file in front of everybody? So why couldn't you do that from the very get-go? What's this all this nonsense about sinister? You could and let me just say this one other last thing before you think. The other thing he did say was, far from saying sinister, yeah, what he says. He says he's looking at whether or not he should involve the police. But I said they weren't going to bring any police. But there you are. They found a way to bring in the police. After saying sinister, they said we're looking at whether or not to involve the police or some forensic audit. All of that with the intention to move away from the real issue, to take you down a rabbit hole where they very well knew the person who should have been standing up at that press conference is Faris Al-Rawi. And I'll see why after you asked me what you were going to say.
Well, actually, I was just going to add to what you mentioned, and I was going to take direct quotes from Martin Daly, starting off with because you mentioned last week the use of this term sinister, and when we spoke just before you came on, and what Martin Daly has said, he's dismissed claims that the reappearance of the file may be a sign of sinister things. And I quote now from Martin Daly, "It pains to emphasize, but they didn't need a file to defend the public interest if you knew something was going on in the court. What it does tell us that there is something rotten in the state of the Attorney General's department. I don't know how we reached a sinister. There is nothing sinister about getting notice about a case going on and attempting to defend. So I'm not going to be diverted or bamboozled by the business of the file because that document could have been gotten otherwise."
So this, and herein lies the problem. Let me just add this, because this is where the AG's claim could have been, or what he said in the press conference should have been clearer, because I don't think he's saying the file was lost so we could not have a defense. That's not what he was saying. He was saying that All he knows is that his secretariat was unaware of the case's existence, and that when he looked into it, because they were unaware of the case's existence, so he did not look into it until last week, Monday, or after the judgment was passed, they could not even sign the file.
But this is the thing.
That is what he's claiming.
Sean, please do not. Please,
but
Sean, have
Karen,
respect for Martin Daly.
I understand what Mr. Daly said, but that is what the
but have
AG
respect for
directly
Martin. But have
said.
respect. Yeah, I know he has to. What is he going to say? Sean, don't you understand this is politics?
Yes, but the AG...
This is above your... Listen, this is above your pay grade and mine. Don't you understand this is politics? And don't you understand that is what Martin Daly was calling them out for? Don't you understand that he was saying that to them? Stop playing games.
Karen, I understand that. But then if I was Mr. Daly, I would perhaps try to phrase my question to the government in a different way. Because technically speaking, it is of my opinion that what the AG said... Now, if we don't want to believe him wholesale, that's a different argument. But that's not what... what Reginald Lamar said. If we don't want to believe him wholesale, that's a different argument. But technically speaking, the question Mr. Daly posed, in my opinion, was already answered by the press conference.
All right, hold on. Before we go on, let me just try and get this clear. Mr. Daly is saying the central issue is not the reappearance and the disappearance of the file. He says the state has acknowledged that they had notice of something going on prior to the termination of liability, and that is very important. The question he was asking is, why did they not hustle to get papers and reconstruct the file in a dramatic way? That is the question he's asking.
That is technically the question the AG was implying in his press conference.
And how did the AG answer that? Because I don't know if you saw the press conference. I didn't hear anything different.
Because he's saying the state, and your opinion is the state includes the AG. The AG said that my office, my secretariat, was not even aware of the case's existence. So how is it that he did not piece together a defense? That is how. If you want to direct the question to the Solicitor General, that's a different situation.
I am so sorry you're nitpicking at this show.
I know I'm nitpicking, but let me just say this. Let me just say this.
And I would like to say.
No, but let me just say this. It doesn't.
Okay, well, let me know. Let me step back and let you take over.
Let me just say this. It does not mean that the AG is not responsible over the fact that a case like this, he's claiming the case happened and he wasn't even aware of it. He is responsible for that.
Okay, Sean, now, one of the reasons you have me on this show is because I'm not a practicing attorney at law. Yes, I've written books and so on. But I think part of the reason you have me on this show is because I was in government at a very high level. I think that's part of the reason. So part of the reason is that I may be able to see beyond what they feed to the public. And I told you since last week that they were going to do something to deflect. I said, I don't know how they're going to bring in the police, but they did. He actually did bring in the police because he said, look at the word sinister. And people jumped on the word sinister, and that's Martin Daly jumped on it too because he understood what the game they play. You don't... Anyway, let me just move on to say this. The person who really should have been standing up there is Faris Arawi. And why do I say that? Because one of the reporters did an excellent job, as I already mentioned, and gave a detailed breakdown of how things transpired. And when you look at it, it made me at the end of the day say, but nearly every single misstep and wrongdoing took place under Faris Arawi. He should be there. Were you hiring Walter Nelson and Stanley Johns to give them briefs? Why are you hiring him? Bring him there to explain how this could happen, because he, in 2018, set up a legal secretariat, the purpose of which was to have a centralized unit so that both the chief state solicitor, where I worked for 5 years, and Solicitor General's department, and all the civil law departments that come under the AG department would have a centralized unit so that everything would come and be reported so that nothing would fall under the thing. This is in 2018. In 2020, on May 2020, which is the last day for filing the default judgment. A default judgment does not mean, by any stretch of the imagination, that you have proven your case. There's no merit in the case because you have not tested the case, which is why probably the court tends not to want to give a default judgment, because you're really not getting it on the merits of your argument, but you're getting it on the basis that the other side failed to defend the case. And they were given opportunity upon opportunity upon opportunity about it. And I have the list. So this whole thing, you've got to be living somewhere in Mars if you believe a Attorney General who's able to tell a lie to the Miami court and say that he had played a minimal role in the defense of one of those key persons in the Piarco scandal, and then wanted to continue that lie and say that he didn't pay until he was exposed, and then wanted to tell people that he was not even senior counsel. When he lied, he was already senior counsel. That's whose voice, that's who you're going to listen to? He's already been proven. And in fact, the Express wrote an article. Now they obviously against Amor, and for some reason, best known to the politicians. Yes, the politicians. They are letting Faris Al-Rawi off the hook. All of this happened under Faris. Faris set up the system. Faris got notice upon notice, even if, as I said, the day after you were served with the file, it went missing. Okay, if it went missing, go back to the court and get a reconstruction of the file. Don't you, as the Attorney General, meet regularly with your head of Solicitor General's Department, your head of Chief State there, to know what is going on, what matters are going on? Are you going to tell me he never had any meetings there? I mean, he's at the height of incompetence. If you don't want to say the height of sinister, is the height of incompetence. And then when you allow this thing to go on and on and on and on and not do anything, November the 12th, they sent you now. You have 42 days to enter defense because you did not enter an appearance, which he had to backtrack and say the judgment said so, but it was not true. But at 42 days to put in a defense, no defense put in. Then, of course, Anand Ramlogan applied. You are served with the documents, and there's a service thing that says that you were served and who was served, right? Serving that they are going to apply for default judgment, permission to take in a judgment in default. November the 18th, 2020, who was the Attorney General? Faris Al-Rawi. Second notice about hearing for this default judgment. Who was the Attorney General? Faris Al-Rawi. January 8, 2020-21. The judgment, default judgment application is heard before Justice, what's her name? Joan Charles. And what did she have to say? No one from the Attorney General's appeared. Who was the Attorney General? Faris Al-Rawi. Look what she said. Upon hearing the notice, upon reading the notice of application, reading the affidavit, and hearing attorneys for the claimant, which are the 9 men, the Attorney General not appearing or being represented at the virtual hearing, permission is granted to the claimant to obtain judgment in default of defense. They got notification. Who was the Attorney General? Faris Al-Rawi. February 9, 2021, he applied for judgment in default, and he got the thing. It is only at the end, at the very, very end, that the state suddenly appears and goes for the assessment of the damages to be assessed.
Just, Karen, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We have to go for a break in just about a minute's time. Yeah, time certainly flies. But before I do, I don't know, Sean, if there's anything you want to say just before we go for the break.
No, I'll just say this. I tend to prefer to use the speaker's words, so in this case, Mr. Moore's words. I'll take it at face value, because I'll poke holes in what he said, with the assumption that, you know, he's giving us some version of the truth. Here's the thing. The defense here, Karen is right, is absolutely right in this respect. The defense is a poor one. The defense that he's putting out, because he also tried to cover Faris Al-Rawi with the statement that Faris sent a memo that all these things, his office needs to be notified to all the various arms. But the point is, it happened where you're claiming that you did not know about a major case, and the fact that you did not know, that is a failure of your running of the office.
Who did not know?
Right?
Who did not know?
Hold on, Karen. His defense is basically saying, you know, we were too incompetent to deal with the situation. If he's willing to say that, and somewhat inclined to at least take it at face value until I find evidence to the contrary. Because the defense is not a great one. To me, his defense does not exonerate him.
All right, listen, we have to go for a break.
Or Faris.
But let us just be clear. In this game called politics, we must not act or believe, we must not act in a manner in which we are oblivious and believe certain things of which we recognize and realize using just our common sense. That being said, we also must not be petty and we must not nitpick at certain things, especially commentary. All right? It is a game. It is a dirty game, but we're very much involved and we're very much aware as to what's taking place. So let us not be oblivious and believe things that are rather, I suppose, doesn't make sense at all to just anybody watching it. So wherever your opinions lie, we respect everybody's opinions. But for Martin Daly's comments in particular, I do not see anything wrong, especially knowing that when you use the term state, the Attorney General acts on the part of the state, and the Solicitor General's office, which falls under the purview of the Attorney General's office, also acts on behalf of the state. So I don't see anything wrong with that, even if we are of the opinion that Reginald Amor answered it already. I'm not satisfied, to say the least.
Well, that's a difference.
Right? We will be right back after this.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com. Welcome back to Talking Points. And on this issue that straddles the two administrations of the previous AG and the current AG, Karen brought up a very important point. She implied it with the last segment, and she brought it up in conversation off air. And that is very simply, why haven't we heard from the former AG who was more or less overseeing the office of the Attorney General when the bulk of the situation go down? Faris Alwari, who is still a current government minister, has not spoken, and we've seen this government be willing to allow, various other people take up a speaking role depending on the situation. Faris was there. He was in charge. Doesn't he have anything to say, or are they keeping him from talking? Karen, what do you make about that?
I think the last statement you made is correct. No, one of my main things, let me just say before I go to that, one of the things that one has to be careful about was the highest ever award in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, 21 million is the highest award that was paid to one person. It was paid to 9 people, so it was 2.1 million per person. So I don't know if 2.1 million paid to a person who, a claimant against the state, would qualify. So I don't think it's really fair to put them all together as if they're one person. They have 9 individuals. And that's really not fair to make that representation. But that's what the media can do. The other point I wanted to make is exactly that. Why is Faris Arawi not out there? They're talking about, there was an article, misstep after misstep, and I read it over several times to confirm that all they talked about was Reggie Amor and embarrassment of being disqualified, and all this another embarrassment. I thought that was pretty hard. I said, when was this man appointed Attorney General? March 16, 2022. Nearly every single thing happened under this Faris Arawi. Do you think it's right that Faris Arawi is not made to stand up next to the current AG and explain? He's the best person to explain. He's the best man, but you know what? If he goes out there to explain, the Prime Minister moved him from AG to local government. The next place he would have to move him is out. And he does not want to move him out because he cannot explain. He cannot explain that if he set up this legal secretariat with the purpose of preventing things falling through the cracks, to make sure there's a continuous reporting. So you meet, because even when I was in government, you met every X amount of time with persons to keep you, because you can't watch everything. You depend on your PSs, you depend on other members to keep you abreast of issues that you would not know everything that's going on. And if he set that up, and he did not, from May 2020 to the 2022, after he reached assessment of damages, after he got every notification of the assessment of damages and never put in you have to ask him why not. He should be standing up there. And you know why he's not standing up there? Because if he were to stand up there and to face the questions from the media, first he probably would say he's not answering and give some cock and bull thing about it's under investigation or some nonsense like that. But the real reason is because if he were to answer, the Prime Minister would have no other choice but to say, boy, I tried to save you, but I can't save you again. Remember, he had to move him from AG because he tried to get Ian McIntyre fired. Yeah. And it backfired on him. And he had to be told what the rules were. He didn't understand he had to get a cabinet minute before you tell somebody to prepare a bill. He think he could do whatever he wants and instruct Ian McIntyre, the head of drafting, draft a bill because I say so. No, it doesn't work like that. And I wrote an article on it. And although they said they got an opinion, I never heard about the opinion. Maybe what I said was enough, and it shut down that whole story. So then they took him to local government to keep him out of trouble. But now this has come up. He should be there. And I can't imagine that Reggie Amor would not say to the Prime Minister, Prime Minister, both of us have to be at that press conference because 99% of all that has happened here has happened under your former Attorney General. And he needs to be one to answer to the public. But you're putting me out there as the fall guy, as a scapegoat, because you want to save him. Because if he opens his mouth and starts to try to explain, at the end of the day, they will say this is the height of incompetence. He should not even be a minister. That's number one point I want to make. The other point was the newspapers took on this misstep after misstep. Not a mention of Faris. Not a mention of Faris. All of it happened under Faris, but they did as if it happened under Amor. Nearly, Amor came in at the very end when they did send a representative and say 1.2 million, they said, as a settlement, which they say is nobody from the AG's office could offer 1.2 million if they hadn't gotten instructions that was what the offer they should make. That is when Amor was there. But all before, where was Faris? Then the next thing that is very misleading is the deliberate use of the word sinister. Yes, do you think they didn't sit down there and think of, listen, I'm telling you, they thought of what word to use. And then talking about getting the police involved to take you down a rabbit hole, to take the focus away from Faris Arawi, because that's where the focus should be, on him. And the government doesn't want the focus on him Because if they put the focus on him, and I'm not asking your opinion, Sean, on this, I am giving you my political cabinet experience and my experience, personal experience of being in cabinet, understanding how cabinet operates, understanding some of those players inside there. So I can't put my head on a block because I was not a fly on the wall. I could tell you, if I was a betting person, I am telling you they're protecting Faris from himself.
Well,
because the next step is Faris has to go out.
I'll
and
just
they
say
cannot let
this.
go of Faris.
Can I just say, I'll just say this. It's interesting to know that Reginald Amor was very limited on what he said to cover Faris. One of the things that he did not say that Faris was unaware of the case. He said he was unaware of the case.
Well, you see,
he didn't say Faris.
You know, and you know why? And you know why he did that, Sean? You know why he did that, Sean? In my respectful opinion, again, maybe wrong. If you pull me out to dry as the Prime Minister and say, no, you have to take the press conference. He said, I take the press conference, but I'm taking it up to that point. So who can read can spell? But he went there, and if you read it, he was trying to say very clearly, you see all this back and the went on. It happened underneath me, you know. It happened in Faris. And the question people should be asking, where's Waldo?
This is where I say, I don't know if Mr. Daly did not want to specify, but I think the question would have been more effective if he said, well, can Faris tell us what was going on and why and what happened?
Let's move on from
who
that.
Else can tell us but him?
No.
Who else is to tell us but him?
That's the thing. Let's just move on from this Martin Daly quote now. It's really,
exactly.
Yeah, but
please.
The reason
who is
why
to tell us but him?
The reason why Reginald Amor didn't go more into detail about Faris Arawi simply it goes into what Karen said, because not only instructions, yes, instructions, but the fact is, if you mention Faris Arawi's names 3 times in that press conference, it is going to now start pointing fingers towards him.
Okay, right.
Which is exactly why he didn't do that.
Exactly.
But remember what I always say, politicians don't directly lie. They lie in ways where what they say literally is technically still correct. So he's not going to talk out. Whatever he knows about Faris, he's not going to talk about it. So nobody could say what I said about Faris was true or untrue.
Well, then your argument
I think you're misunderstanding. Sean, can I just say this with all due respect to you? And I mean it with all due respect to you. I think unless you've been, and all due respect also to your listeners, I think until you have been in cabinet and you have dealt with cabinet colleagues and understand how they sat down and negotiated how they were going to deal with this situation, you really don't know. It was all done in order to protect Faris and to make Faris fade into the background, talk about sinister, talk about police report, talk about employing 2 people. But guess what? Don't talk about Faris, because if Faris was put there, he would have to be fired. He would be fired.
I'm agreeing with you about Faris, because you're right. By not mentioning Faris too often, it keeps the focus off of Faris. But the thing is, no substantive claims about Faris' involvement really and truly was made. So it's one big question mark, and we haven't necessarily gotten any answers of the government.
And nothing will be made, Sean, don't you understand? That is the point.
Well, I would like to think that if the press asks enough questions, at the very least, you would have to get
maybe the press don't want to ask enough questions.
The press hasn't asked the questions, and that's why...
You don't understand. That's what the press is not doing. Did you not read the article called Misstep After Misstep in the Sunday Express Opinion, where they started by saying, after the embarrassment of being disqualified in the Piarco Airport corruption case, and now this, the Attorney General on a fishing expedition for the missing 5. Don't you see in that entire article, they never mentioned Faris Arawi's name? The only person they mentioned was Reg Amor, and they painted him as if, look at that, why they don't talk about how Faris was removed as Attorney General? Because he's totally incompetent.
Yes, that is true. We did speak about that when this whole thing happened.
Some people have been trained all their life to be a politician. Faris Arawi is probably one of those individuals.
I wish he would have
Reginald Amor,
done as well with his legal studies.
Reginald Amor, in his capacity, has not had any training or has been trained to be a politician. He's more so a lawyer. And one might argue, listen, they're not very much far apart, but we're actually recognizing that right now. Interestingly, Faris Sahrawi, he was not mentioned or thrown under the bus, as Karen suggested. It is because they're protecting him. The government is protecting him. But why is the government protecting him? It's not because Faris Sahrawi is an asset, you know. One might
better believe it.
It's because he is a liability. It is because he is a liability.
No. It's because they cannot get rid of him. And you can figure out why not. The rest of Trinidad can figure it out. But, okay, there you go. So when I wrote an article in the Express, and when the whole issue with Ian McIntyre came up, and I went into detail to show how he was wrong in what he did, and backed it up with the law and everything, I ended the article by saying, so what is a prime minister to do? Well, he can move him out, or he can move him across. And I guess he felt it was better that rather than move him out, to move him across. So this time around, what is he going to do? He can move him across. The only across he can move him is out. And he knows that he put Faris on that podium to start asking those questions about his legal secretariat and what it is intended to do and why did it collapse and why didn't he do this. All these things happen under him. He cannot answer. He cannot answer. And then you will say, but this man is totally incompetent.
Well, there's one more thing to add to this, and there was an article in one of the daily papers on Sunday that quoted sources. I assume it's anonymous sources. The thing is, though, these sources, because they're anonymous, it's even harder to gauge, you know, what their motivations are, how true their claims are. They are agreeing with what the AG said, and this is the trick, right? A leak. Well, it could be a leak of convenience where you're leaking it yourself to try to move things in the direction that you want. It's hard to tell because you've left it anonymous.
I'll be honest with you. Sometimes, even as an individual, whilst we have to respect people choosing to be anonymous, it's sometimes very hard to believe individuals who say, we're anonymous. You know, I don't know who journalists are quoting. I don't know where they're getting the information from, because it's very easy for anybody to write an article and quote 3 sources whom don't exist, but refer to them as anonymous. So, you know, honestly, listen, I understand how it works, and I respect journalism. I think journalism in Trans-Baton is it's far from great, even at times far from good, but there have been some articles of which I will say really has shed some light. You know, just to summarize this entire debate this morning, more or less, it's what you're seeing on your screen right now. We have the current Attorney General, Reginald Amor, who has been in a cauldron of hot water since he entered the office.
Yep.
And then we have the former Attorney General, Faris Sahrawi, whom the government really cannot remove. We all know why. But he's really a liability to them. He's trained all his life to be a politician, and boy, oh boy, is he good at speaking. Which is ironic. That man will speak to you for 2 minutes, and you will think, oh my God, I'm the greatest thing since packed ramen.
No, but it's ironic because he does put his foot in the mouth far too often, and I think that goes back to what Karen is saying. They don't want him to speak. And I don't think they want him to speak either. They want him as far away from this as possible.
Really?
He might say something like mother of all carnivals again.
Really? Faris Sahrawi is the new public relations officer of the People's National Movement Party.
Right? I know.
You know? So it's quite interesting. It's quite ironic. He's also the Minister of Local Government, considering this year is very important for local government, and considering that how every time this man speaks, you swear it's a campaign, right? That is also, listen, all of this is done well. All of this is actually put together well.
You know, his grandfather is Lionel Sukaran.
Yes.
And Lionel Sukaran was one of the greatest orators we ever had. So he's trying maybe to maintain that, that legacy.
There's no problem there. There's no problem with the speaking. It's the content that sometimes leaves us questioning.
Anyway, listen, ladies and gentlemen, at this point we're going to take a break, and when we return, well, Karen is with us this morning, so you're free to call and express your opinions, ask questions. We'll try our very best to answer them, but we have a question to ask you, so when we return, we will get into that. We'll be right back after this.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Intelligence-led exercises net 5 suspects and 5 guns. 5 more succumbed to COVID-19. AG reserves comment on file until conclusion of investigation. And internationally, earthquake death toll surpasses 11,000. Now for the details. 5 persons were arrested and 4 pistols and a rifle seized by officers during ongoing anti-crime operations across the country between Sunday and Tuesday. In the latest seizure, an intelligence-led exercise in the Central Division, where a 29-year-old Cougar man was arrested for possession of 1 Glock 17 pistol, fitted with a selector, 2 magazines, and 6 rounds of ammunition. Meanwhile, task force officers of the Northeastern Division conducted an exercise in Morvant, which resulted in officers finding 1 Glock 17 pistol loaded with an extended magazine containing 25 rounds of ammunition. A quantity of marijuana was also found in a bushy area in the vicinity of the premises. A 19-year-old suspect was arrested in connection with the finds. 5 persons have succumbed to the COVID-19 virus in the last week. The death toll has now been pushed to 4,331. 291 new cases of the virus was also recorded. The rolling 7-day average for deaths stand at 1, while the figure for active cases is 42. Currently, there are 49 persons hospitalized with the virus. Attorney General Reginald Amor has made the decision not to comment on the missing file that was revealed to be found and submitted to the lead investigator on Monday. The AG had only last week confirmed that the file had disappeared.
I do not propose to answer the question, which is the subject of a continuing investigation. That is for the investigation team to investigate and to report on in due course. There is nothing to clarify. The subject of the reappearance and who handed that file or located it continues to be part of Justice John's investigation, on which he will report in due course.
In international news now, more than 11,000 people have been killed and tens of thousands injured after a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck Turkey and Syria on Monday, according to officials. Thousands of buildings collapsed in both countries, and aid agencies are particularly worried about northwestern Syria, where more than 4 million people were already relying on humanitarian assistance. Freezing weather conditions are further endangering survivors and complicating rescue efforts as more than 100 aftershocks have struck the region. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
Well, thank you very much to Denise Martin for news on the hour. Folks, thank you for staying with us. Karen Ines Teixeira joins Sean and I this morning. And let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into the question of the day. All right, okay. So going ahead with the question, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, this truly might seem as though we've answered this already. We need your opinion. Public's opinion is very, very important. In his capacity as the former Attorney General, should Faris Arawi address his role with respect to the investigation into the disappearance and subsequent appearance of the Naipaul Kuhlman case files? The civil case, that is. Should Faris Arawi address his role with respect to the investigation? Call in and join us on Talking Point this morning. Share your thoughts and opinion with us. Well, the phone lines are now open. And just a couple of things, a couple of reminders. Please mute your televisions when calling in. Kindly be mindful of the time and respectful to other viewers. And more importantly, don't wait until 9:25, 9:26. Call on the line with us already from Claxton Bay. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, hi, good morning, Keaton, Small, and Mr. Shera. I agree that if Faris Alwali is involved in in the past and he's supposed to deal with the matter, yes, I believe all of us out here will want to know. But I also want to believe, just like Mr. Shera saying, that he's protected by the cabinet. I want to know who is protecting Gerald Ramdeen, Anand Ramblogan, and David Lee also. These people charged. I want to know who is protecting them, Mr. Shera. Thank you.
Fair question. We have another caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller from San Fernando.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Karen. You know, to answer the question first, yes. He should make an appearance to give some answers. What, Karen, I would like you to, if you can, explain what this secretariat entails, how it functions, because I want to understand it more, firstly. And the second, let me put some light on this situation. You all would like Faris to come and stand up there and make an appearance and answer questions. What will Faris say? Let me give you an example. You all know how long it takes me to put on this suit and fold this tie in my pocket? I don't have time for nothing else. That is all he can say. And have you all noticed, since he has gone to local government, all he wears is a pair of slacks and a polo shirt?
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a good day. I was about to counter your argument with the fact that he's now wearing a lot more polos than anything else. But call on the line with us from Digo Martin before we go to Karen's explanation. Good morning, caller.
Hi, morning panel.
Good morning.
Everyone. Yes. You know, it's amazing when human beings have a particular practice. Sometimes they might be able to play football well. They might be able to lie well. You know, that kind of thing. They carry it on, not only in other spheres of their lives. And it just keeps going on and on and on. And in this instance, because the public taken it up and took it apart and showed them, look, don't believe you all, come better. And the question I want to ask, wasn't there a handover between Faris Alwari and the new Attorney General? Thanks. Bye.
It would seem not.
Okay.
But anyway,
Yes,
Karen,
okay,
go
I
ahead.
can answer very briefly.
Sure.
My understanding of the Secretariat is supposed to be a centralized unit that the former Attorney General Faris Alwari set up in order to be able to have a flow of information so that anything that was going on in any department, that he would be kept aware of it. That was the intention. Clearly, if that was it, it must have failed. Secondly, with regard to the other part of the question, which is, what was the other part of the question?
Well, no, there was a handover between Faris Alwari.
But even if there was a handover, I'll tell you who it is. Rhea Tate wrote a very excellent article, and she gives you a detailed breakdown. By the time the current Attorney General came into the picture, it had gone far beyond assessment of damages. The permission for the assessment had occurred. Permission had been given. It had gone way past all those things, and the AG department had been notified upon notification. So the question is, what was happening with our then Attorney General that he had not acted? Because if he had acted, he would never have been in this position today.
Fair enough. Call on the line with us actually from Shogunas. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
I don't know why we spend all this money to get senior counsel to investigate this matter. Well, it's so simple. They said the file went to the Attorney General office. Somebody signed for it. All the ARC had to do is ask him, where you doing the file? Other people went negotiating the amount for it. All you have to do is ask them who asked them to negotiate and who they report to. Why are we paying senior counsel all this? And the reason is obvious, and I told you it last week. It is ministers of government or people under high political directorate going against one public servant. I mentioned to you the case with Weimar, and that is in the public domain. You could go and get the documents and review them yourself. And it is obvious that if they ask the people who we reported to, the people who making all these noise, all they are doing is protecting their own. Everybody knows.
That's it.
Thank you.
Just may I add, Mr. Daly said, all you had to do was ask for a copy, electronic copies of all the files. Once you couldn't find them, what's the big deal? Clear it up early in the day. Why allow it to go on for years?
There's a heavy implication that blame might be shifted to the Solicitor General and or someone in that office.
And why did you ask Faris Al-Wari to come and explain it? He's the best person. Not an answer. Ask him.
There's the law, there's politics, and then there's common sense. Caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, morning.
Morning.
How are you guys? Good night.
Yeah.
Listen, I have 4 points here to submit.
Quick.
So the first one is yes, Faris should come and explain what transpired. Secondly, the AG and the office, they are providing, in fact, a lot of material for Calypsonians and Old Mass. Number 3, I would like to know the cost to investigate the missing file now. Okay? And the fourth one, I would like to dedicate this tune to the AG and the entire office. Amazing file, how much I forced to pay for investigating me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. We're wanting to see the outcome.
Well done.
Go on, Karen. Has gone on record and been told, he didn't say who it was, but it's one of the top Calypso thing, who told him he is not to say or sing anything anti the PNM. And he said, what? He said it on, I'm not saying things out of turn.
Yeah.
He said he was told he's not to do that. And then he said, well, if I cannot speak the truth about what's going on with the government, don't worry, I won't be in your whatever tent or whatever it is. That's to tell you what's going on with this government.
I will get the name very sure. I think is it Errol Fabian, if I'm not mistaken?
Errol Fabian said that. Yeah, he said that. They told him he is not to sing anything or say anything anti the PNM. Do you understand what's going on in this country?
We have a caller. Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Teixeira, and to you young gentlemen.
Morning.
I just want to say that I don't understand what is all that is going on here. Everybody knows what is happening. It's a big cover-up is going to happen. And the fact is, if the government wanted to be transparent, all they have to do from the very beginning, say, listen, hand it over to the police commissioner, let's start an investigation into it, and do like Cameron officer, Mr. Servant, she had the fake emails. That's what she did, hand it over to the police, and the police deal with it. And then after you could do whatever investigation after you want. So I don't understand what I'm thinking. Of course, Faris Al-Wari has to answer for a lot of these questions. And also the President Attorney General, he cannot abscond from that. He's part and parcel of it as well. So you gentlemen have a good morning and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, caller.
Have a good day, caller.
Yeah, he's part and parcel.
I just want to get back to what Karen just mentioned, because I read this story, I think it was on Monday, and Errol Fabian, he turned down a job hosting the Calypso show. He was told he was not allowed to say anything negative about the People's National Movement.
But I mean, joking about government is just par for the course, whoever it is.
He says the promoter remains a friend and employer, but he just couldn't do it. I mean, if you can't be honest, what's the point?
You can't make jokes about the opposition. The opposition not doing anything.
No. So what you're seeing, the creeping dictatorship, that is how far that everyone had the gumption to come out and expose them.
Well, we have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, good morning to the panel.
Good morning.
Morning.
You know, Keaton and Sean and Mr. Teixeira, I don't know if any member of the panel, the 9 men who are now claiming assessment damages from their stay in the prison.
Mm-hmm.
When the trial for Vindra Naipaul Coolman had ended, Justice Malcolm Holdip had freed some of them. But I want a point of clarification. He said that two of the accused, will have to stand a retrial for the same murder. I haven't heard anybody speaking about that. As a matter of if any one member of the panel could clarify it for me, two of them were committed by Justice Malcolm Holdip to stand a retrial for the murder of the same Vindra Naipaul Coolman. Just clarify that for me, please.
All right, caller.
I'll listen to your comments over.
Thank you. We will clarify that in a moment. We just have to take this call. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning. You're live.
Hi, morning to everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
I just want to clear something, what I had seen when the Attorney General had first reported, made a statement about the file. He had said,
you can't see him for love or money. They tell him, you know what the Prime Minister told him to do? I know that's what the Prime Minister told him to do. Say, boy, you lie low. Don't let anybody see you, because right now, people are going to ask why you're not answering these questions. And we're going to make Reggie the fall guy. And I saw Reggie not too happy about it. Sorry, Attorney General. Be more respect.
Karen.
Sorry.
Caller previously wanted some clarification with respect. I'm not entirely sure what clarification you wanted, but he was mentioning Malcolm Holdip suggesting.
Yeah, but that, okay, I heard what he said. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that 9 of them were acquitted, one on a no-case submission, meaning they absolutely had no case to begin with against him, right? And so that part has passed. They have been acquitted by the courts. Just imagine if you are accused of something and you were innocent. So right now, what they're looking at is getting payment for what they went through for 9 years. And 2.1 million per person is not a lot of money. So the other 2 have to go for trial.
Right. So the implication is, depending on how this all turns out, could we face 2 more lawsuits coming from those 2 men, depending on how their trial goes? But one of the callers from Claxton Bay, he asked a question, who protected, I think, Anna Ram Logan
and David Lee.
I'll just say this, with regards to Mr. Ram Logan, a case could be made that he was protected by the fallout of the indemnity deal with regards to Mr. Vincent Nelson. And it's just ironic who is, potentially responsible.
Sure, can I say something my grandfather said? You know what my grandfather said? 2 wrongs don't make a right. Don't try to get deflect away
I know
from
that,
the problem.
but the point I'm
not
making,
you, the person who called.
Yes.
You want to come and talk about something else. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what's going on with Paris.
I'll just like to point
who's
out
in this government right now.
That Anna Laram Logan case potentially is going to fall apart due to the actions of the Office of the Attorney General. I'm just saying.
The same Attorney General who went and said he followed the advice of Douglas Mendes and Gilbert Peterson. It's shameful.
Who is oh Lord, this is sometimes
and it's nothing personal.
I don't dislike Paris. I know it's coming across.
I don't have an axe
I
to
really
grind.
do not.
Yes, with the AG, I have nothing personal against him. I am judging him based off of his own words and actions. Right? I'm making no assumptions on his motivations.
You need to go in cabinet for a little while.
Just on his own words and actions, Karen. The gift that keeps on giving.
Anyway.
I mean, go in cabinet for a little while, Sean, and you'll come back a different person.
Anyway, as we continue with the 10 minutes left on Talking Point this morning, may I remind you that the phone lines are still open. Karen is still with us. Sean is still with us, and I'm just right here sitting on. Let me remind you of the question of the day, ladies and gentlemen. In his capacity as the former Attorney General, as I said, we probably answered this question already. Should Faris Arawi adjust his role with respect to the investigation into the disappearance and subsequent appearance of the Naipaul Coolman files?
Is there any protocol that says that he shouldn't? I'm just asking for the sake of asking.
Yes, there is one protocol. It's called party politics. It's called cabinet politics.
It's also called protecting him because the next step is he's going to have to leave.
I mean, he could be a backbencher. Is that a possibility?
No, yeah, but he's an MP, so he will do him what they did Rowley. So because what? You're going to go Nelson Gate and don't want to take responsibility and say it's Douglas Mendes and Peterson to responsible, and then when you go after McIntyre,
we have a caller.
Fool of yourself.
We have a caller, Karen. Oh, I think we just got and just lost the caller. Caller, call in. Call back in one time, and we'll take the call.
So as I'm just trying to also wrap my head around the call from Kaxenby, his question, because with respect to who's protecting David Lee, yes, I agree, let's not get distracted, but it's still a valid question. As I've continued to analyze, as I continue to analyze the relationship between the opposition, United National Congress, and the current government, the PNM-led administration, you sometimes tend to wonder, it would seem as though, at times it comes across this way, that there is some form of a cordial relationship where a deal is suggested that, listen, all right, okay, we will be a weak opposition and we will not essentially go after everything that you said. And in return, yes, you probably have everything on us, but guess what? We will do you that favor. We will be weak, we will be incompetent, and in return, you will just, leave us alone. Let us enjoy our retirement while sitting on the nice leather chairs in the air-conditioned halls of Parliament.
The thing is, though, they do bad talk the government on everything. In fact, they go so far, they literally talk about everything, including the kitchen sink.
That is part of the deal. We will bad talk you, but we will not be consistent. We will not be persistent. We will not dive deeper. And we will not go into what matters.
As much as that sounds ridiculous, it does answer the question, why did they get caught up with the independent senators when the issue of the day was the Police Service Commission? I don't know if Karen has anything to weigh on that.
Jack Warner then. When they brought in Jack. No, they brought in Jack. And they bring in some kind of heavy rollers now.
Yeah, but Jack has a case over accusations of fraud over his head, so I don't know if that's the best. I mean, locals might be defensive or very willing to overlook that American case. So,
see, this is the thing. I'm not in. I know that the United National Congress. How we even got to this? But I know that the United National Congress.
You brought us.
I know the United National Congress is trying their very best to form another partnership. Thus far, it is not working out. And you know what? I would say kudos to all those other parties out there, the smaller parties, who have said, you know what? No, we're not joining hands. We're not tying any ties with you. We're going to remain our own. Well done, because that's the best possible thing that you can do. They're trying very hard to build a partnership. I see Jack Warner has now said he's very much open to talks. Kamala and himself were hugging. Kudos, well done. It's good to see that friendships were mended. Politically, oh, come on, guys. We've moved on from this. I don't think it's going to work.
Lucian, then. Let me ask you, let me turn the question on you.
Sure.
Genuinely, what do you think the answer is for the
I've always said that people have made the argument, listen, let's take this caller from Dabity first, and then I will answer your question.
That's how you've always answered? You take the caller.
That is how I have always answered. I'm very good at it.
I would like to hear what he says.
Okay.
Hello, good morning.
You're on the air.
Pleasant morning. I know it is hump day, but the political program you all are having on this morning is not benefiting. I'm not benefiting anything from it. I'm hearing allegations, and I know normally you'll come with facts. And it's nice to have the humor in the program. Nothing is wrong with that. That is what journalism is all about. I enjoy that. However, my little take on the AG case is that some people are saying the files were there, and the AG said the files were missing. I believe the files were missing, and somebody has to be accountable for it.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we get proper investigation, we will find out who it is, and they will have to face the brunt of it, because more files will go missing again.
The thing is, though, I suspect we might very much get a scapegoat. So I hope we get to the truth. I don't know if we'll get to the truth.
I think we will. I think we will. And I like your take for the Super Bowl.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And a pleasant morning to my dear friend Karen to share on the program this morning. Karen, a pleasant
Good morning to you. Thank you.
As usual. Guys, wonderful program. Have a nice day.
Well, thank you, Cole. I know you said that, first of all, we respect your opinion and your thoughts. That's excellent.
But I just want to respond to what he said. I understand that, yes, it seems speculatory. Karen is speaking from experience. But even then, if I look, and this is where my opinion, I look at the whole situation. I might disagree with Karen on some parts, but I agree with her with the fact that the defense that the Attorney General is putting forward, even if I believe him 100%, it's not a great defense, because that situation that you just said, the responsibility, to some extent, they are the guy, and he himself said it in the press conference. He is the man in charge. He has to bear responsibility. However, we're also saying Faris has to bear some of that responsibility too, because he was there when it actually happened.
And I also appreciate you saying that you didn't benefit from the program. And I will say you did. I'll tell you why. You've watched the analysis this morning, you called in.
That's true.
And it concretized your opinion.
That is true. That is true.
You know, and we benefited from your opinion as well. So thank you very much. To answer Karen's question, I've always been of the opinion, and maybe sometimes I'm living in La La Land, but there are those on the opposition bench and those in the current government bench who I believe are actually damn good at what they do. And they should be the ones, if they were able to leave this mindset of party politics and form their own, they could be the ones to actually lead Trinidad and Tobago forward. There are some good alternatives out there. Some of those who are part of political parties currently, and some independent commentators who will choose to remain independent. But this thing about Kamala and Rowley, and if I'm not red, I'm yellow, and if I yellow, you know, I'm not red. That sort of thing, Karen, I believe that there are individuals on both sides who are excellent, and if they came together and you cleaned out all this driftwood, you know, my greatest respects to Kamala Persad-Bissessar. She is a former Prime Minister. My greatest respects to Camille Robinson-Regis. I don't know what you have done. My greatest respects to Fitzgerald Hines. Excellent speaker, crappy politician and minister. I will simply say there are some of those out there that can benefit Trinidad and Tobago.
I will just say this, and I agree with Mr. Piggott yesterday, and this is something that I've heard before and that I have said before and in some capacity or another multiple times. A lot of it comes down to we are voting what we want, right? And we, the public, needs to change that. We have to be willing to change that. And if we're not, and if we just vote the same thing over and over again, and then complain, oh, this is so bad, because you could be a party sycophant and complain about the other side, but at the end of the day, it's mostly the same. The party politics is mostly the same, right? The approach is mostly the same.
I hear you, but to a certain extent...
So the voters the change has to start from the ground up, because we could try to get the politicians who are better, but the party politics will make it an uphill battle for those people to make a change. It will make it an uphill battle.
I hear you to a certain extent. I don't think it's we voting for you know, whatever, we will complain.
What about NAR? Did we have the days of NAR? Nobody would have thought that could have ever happened.
Very true.
That PNM strongholds, that they could take the licking on their lives. 33-3, I mean, that was unbelievable. So we could never say never. It just, you know.
Exactly.
So I don't think
but when that goes into the point that I was counteracting Sean's position with, it's not a matter of we voting for who we want, or we voting for what we want. I think sometimes people say, no, we just have no damn choice. It's the same two people going up for the seat again. Guess what? Cool. You know what? I really don't care for this person. I'm going to choose the lesser of two evils, or the person I will perceive to be less corrupt. Because at the end of the day,
or not vote at all.
Exactly, because who's ever in that position, nothing going to get done anyway.
But perhaps you could argue that at the time 33-3 implies that the voter changed. I mean, to some extent, the politicians, the NAR was you know, as an entity, might have offered something new, but the voter changed as well.
Because there was a breath of fresh air.
Okay,
so
it goes hand in hand.
That is true. He is so right, because I was around then. You may have been young, but I was around then, and I definitely voted NAR. And there was so much excitement in the country at the time, I can tell you that.
Almost like what we saw with the COP, but I know my co-host, he definitely wasn't around then.
I was around.
Because I was barely around then, so he could not have been around.
I was around for the COP.
For the COP, not for the NAR.
Not for the NAR.
Yeah, different situations. One didn't win a seat, the other one was 33%.
Goodbye, Karen. Thank you very much for your contribution, for your presence, and for your insight. We wish you all the best and look forward to seeing you next week, Wednesday. Thank you very much to my co-host and colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small, to you, the viewer, and all the callers who make Talking Point what it is, and of course to our directors. Just remember, today is a good day to have a good day, and should things go good, hopefully they do, we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.